Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. The Alpha's Stepmate. Episode 9. Chapter 22. Over my dead body. Madeline's POV. I was a little bit tired. Dimitri's anger and fear were immense and I kept trying to make him feel better. I kept trying to make him feel calm. I kept trying to reassure him. It was hard, though. I would finally manage to calm him down a little, but then another wave of anger washed over him with such intensity my insides twisted. It took me so much time and energy to calm him down again. Worst of all, he just refused to tell me what happened. Will is on his way, Ellie said, making me look at her. She was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed over her chest. She looked worried and I knew that Dimitri had already told her what happened. An unknown feeling made my stomach turn. Why did he tell her and not me? Did he trust her more? Maybe he didn't think I would be able to help him. Maybe he didn't think I would be able to handle it. Stop it, Madeline, Sky growled at me. You know that none of that is true. He will tell you. I took a deep breath and released it slowly. Look, Maddie, Sky continued, but I interrupted her. I can't, Sky, I said. Not now. Something is going on with Dimitri and I need to focus on him. We will do this later, okay? She was silent for a moment. You will talk to me? She asked quietly. I gulped and tightened my jaw. Yes, I said. I will talk to you later. I could feel her excitement growing. I pushed her back and focused on Dimitri. He was pacing back and forth around our office with angry expression on his face. His anger was back. I took a deep breath and focused on him entirely. I could feel the anger pulsating beneath his skin. I could feel it running through his veins. I could feel it wrapping itself around him. I took a deep, slow breath through my nose and imagined I was pulling the anger out of him and toward me. The anger was cold and its edges felt sharp. It made my entire body tense up. It made my insides hurt. But Dimitri relaxed immediately and it was all that mattered. It was all I wanted. He muttered as he took a deep breath and released it slowly. Can you please just tell me? I spoke, but I was interrupted by the office door opening. Will walked inside followed by a very timid-looking Allie. I smiled brightly and stood up. Allie! I exclaimed, reaching out for her. She looked at me and I saw her relax a little. She smiled and approached me. I pulled her into a tight hug. Oh, I am so happy for you, I said softly. I am so happy you get to stay here. What's wrong, Dimitri? Will asked, drawing my attention back to my mate. His anger was back. Dimitri clenched his jaw and looked at Allie. Can we trust her? He mumbled angrily, making Will growl. Allie tensed up and tried to pull away from me. I just held her tighter. She is my mate, Dimitri, Will said, narrowing his eyes at my mate. You are my alpha and my king, but I won't let you doubt my mate. Dimitri growled back at him. And I won't let my mate get hurt because of her, he exclaimed. Will's eyes widened. He opened his mouth to speak, but I interrupted him. Enough! I said sternly. You are not fighting over this. Allie is my friend and she's not a danger to me. Will bowed his head immediately. Dimitri tightened his jaw and clenched his fists. Your first order, Ellie said, chuckling a little. Nice, Maddie. I furrowed my brows and looked at her. Ellie chuckled when she saw my confused face. You just ordered them to stop, she said. It was very effective, I must say. My eyes widened and I looked back at Dimitri and Will. Oh, I am so sorry! I exclaimed. I didn't mean to. I don't even know how. Don't apologize, princess, Dimitri interrupted me as he approached me and pulled me away from Ali. He kissed the top of my head and stroked my hair. It was hot. He mind-linked me. Maybe you could order me around like that in our bedroom tonight. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from chuckling. I am looking forward to that. I responded. He leaned in and placed a soft kiss on my lips. Can you please explain to me what was that about? Will asked. I looked at him and saw him staring at Dimitri with an angry expression on his face. He was holding Ali in his arms and it made me smile a little. I am sorry, Will, I said softly. Dimitri is a bit nervous this morning. He didn't mean anything bad. Will looked at me and his expression softened. I am not nervous, Dimitri said angrily. I am angry. Ali's eyes widened. I sighed and resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Dimitri wasn't making the best first impression. Why? Will asked. What happened? Dimitri took a deep breath and tightened his hold on me. Alpha Alistair asked to talk to me last night, Dimitri said. He believes that there is a traitor among the Alphas. My eyes widened and I looked up at Dimitri. Will growled loudly. If that's true then Maddie is in so much danger, Dimitri said, his arms tightening around me. Will growled again. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Will exclaimed angrily. We need to do something. We need to protect her. Dimitri sighed and raised an eyebrow at Will. I tried to tell you, but you were a bit preoccupied, Dimitri said, glancing at Ali. She held her breath and I saw fear in her eyes. It's okay, Ali, I said softly. You didn't do anything wrong, okay? Will looked at her and kissed her temple. He whispered something to her and looked back up at Dimitri. We need to call Alistair and talk to him, Will said, clenching his jaw. We need to figure out why he thinks that one of the Alphas is a traitor. Dimitri nodded. We also need to do everything we can to protect Maddie, he said. She needs to be with one of us at all times. We can't leave her alone. Will looked at me and took a deep breath. Nothing will happen to her, he said, keeping his eyes on me. Over my dead body. Not participating. Dimitri's POV. I won't be participating in the tournament, Ellie said, making us all look at her. Why? Will asked her, furrowing his brows. Ellie sighed and looked at Maddie. Because I can't distract myself with it, she said. Maddie needs to be protected. She needs me. Ellie, no, Maddie said as she stood up and approached the couch. She sat down next to Ellie and took Ellie's hand in hers. You have to participate, Ellie, Maddie said softly. You've been preparing for it for a long time. I will be okay. Dimitri and Will won't let anything happen to me. She was right about that. I was going to destroy anyone who even thought about hurting her. Nothing was going to happen to Maddie. No, Maddie, Ellie said sternly. I am not participating. If something happened while I was in the game, I would never forgive myself. Maddie wanted to protest, but she was interrupted by a knock on the door. Madeline, I called her sternly. I wanted her close to me while we talked to Alpha Alistair. I didn't trust him. She sighed, stood up, and walked back to me. I grabbed her hand just as Will opened the office door. Alpha Alistair, Will said and stepped aside so he could walk in. Beta William, Alpha Alistair said, bowing his head a little. He looked at me and smiled. My king, he said as he approached my desk. Thank you for inviting me here. I gave him a small nod and pointed at the armchair opposite my desk. Sit down, Alpha, I said. We have a lot to discuss. Alpha Alistair sat down and looked at Maddie. A small smile spread across his face. It is so nice to see you again, my queen, he said. I wish it was in better circumstances, though. I tightened my hold on Maddie's waist. I didn't want him looking at her. As far as I knew, he was the traitor. I wished I could pull Maddie to my lap. She was sitting on the chair next to me, but she was still too far away for my liking. I need you to explain what you told me yesterday, Alpha Alistair, I said sternly. Why do you think that there is a traitor among the Alphas? Alpha Alistair sighed and leaned back in his chair. He glanced at Ellie and Ali and raised his eyebrow. Should they be here for this, my king? He asked. The less people know, the better. They have to be here, Alpha, Will said as he pulled a chair and sat down next to Maddie. Please answer the question. Alpha Alistair looked at me and took a deep breath. Think about it, my king, he said. Is there a rogue powerful enough to inflict such damage? Is there a rogue powerful enough to gather so many followers who would do as he said? I tightened my jaw and narrowed my eyes slightly. The answer was no. There wasn't a rogue powerful enough to cause so much trouble. If there was, he would have been eliminated a long time ago. I was tracking the rogues' movements, and if I had noticed that any of them were getting powerful, I would have had it taken care of. Our kingdom is in danger, my king, Alpha Alistair added. I am pretty sure that the danger is coming from the inside, not the outside. I gritted my teeth. You must have a suspect, Will said angrily. You must already have an idea about who it is. Alpha Alistair looked at him and sighed again. Maybe, he said. I wouldn't want to point a finger at the wrong person, though. Who? I asked sternly. Alpha Reese, Alpha Alistair said, looking back at me. I raised my brows. Alpha Reese. I repeated. Why? Alpha Alistair glanced at Maddie. He is young and ambitious, he said. I raised my brows. We were all young and ambitious once, Alpha Alistair, I said. That doesn't make him guilty. Alpha Alistair sighed. No, but what he said about your mate might. I tensed up immediately. Skol stirred and pressed to be let out. What? I exclaimed, trying to hold back a growl. Alpha Alistair looked at Maddie. I am sorry, my queen, he said, bowing his head a little. I want to apologize in advance for the words I am about to say in front of you. It's okay, Alpha, Maddie said, her voice laced with nervousness. Please continue. Alpha Alistair looked back at me and took another deep breath. He didn't even say what he wanted to say, and I was already seething with anger. I wanted to kill Reese. I wanted to strangle him and watch life leave his pathetic body. Alpha Lucius and I overheard him talking to his beta. Alpha Alistair started explaining. He said how nice it would be if your mate was his. He told his beta that he would try to make it happen because there was nothing more he wanted than to have her. I saw red. He was a dead man. A feral growl escaped my lips. My canines elongated and fur started growing on my arms. Skol was thrashing and trying to get out. I was going insane with anger. Maddie placed a hand on my thigh, but it barely did anything to help with my anger. I was on the verge of finding him and killing him. That doesn't prove anything, Alpha, Maddie said calmly. That doesn't prove that he is behind the rogue attacks. No, my queen, Alpha Alistair said, looking at Maddie. But it proves that he wants something that our king has. If he wants you, what makes you think that he doesn't want the throne as well? I don't talk about it. What he wanted. He wasn't going to get it. Maddie was mine. Mine. Alpha Alistair looked back at me and tightened his jaw. You need to be careful, my king, he said. Someone is plotting against you. It may not be Alpha Reese, but I am sure that it's someone. You can't trust anyone. Maddie rubbed my thigh gently and I relaxed just a little. I forced myself to take a deep breath. Thank you, Alpha, I said, my voice trembling with anger. I will think about everything you shared with us and I will make sure that both my mate and my throne are safe. Alpha Alistair nodded. I am always at your service, my king. Please use me if you need me. I nodded and motioned toward the door. We need to discuss this, Alpha. Please give us some privacy. Alpha Alistair stood up immediately. Of course, my king, he said and bowed. I will see you tonight at the opening ceremony. I nodded and watched him leave the room. What are we going to do? Will asked as soon as Alpha Alistair walked out of my office and closed the door. We are going to talk to Mike, I said, gritting my teeth. Right now. A minute alone. Madeline's POV. I could feel how much Dimitri needed me. He kept flinching, squeezing my hand, and his anger kept washing over him in intense waves. Can we please have a minute alone? I asked, looking at Will. He furrowed his brows a little and glanced toward the door. Mike will be here any moment now, he said. Please, Will, I said, giving him a pleading look. He looked at Dimitri and sighed. We will wait outside, he mumbled as he stood up and looked at Ellie and Ellie. Come on. I took a deep breath as I watched them all leave the room. Dimitri looked like he didn't even realize that the three of them had left. I climbed onto his lap as soon as Will closed our office door. I am here, my love, I said softly and cupped his cheeks. I am in your arms. I am right here. I leaned in and placed a soft kiss on his cheeks. He grabbed my hips tightly and I could feel that his claws elongated. I am here, Skol, I said as I moved my lips to his jaw. I love you. He growled and his canines elongated as well. I left a trail of soft kisses all the way from his jaw to his lips. I kissed him as softly as I could. His canines were on the way, but I didn't mind. It was a part of him and Skol and I loved them as much as I loved every other part of him. I caressed his cheeks with my thumbs as I placed a soft kiss on the tip of his nose. I am here, I repeated quietly. I love you. I love you so much. He growled again and I felt his hand run up my back. He tangled his fingers into my hair and held me in place. His claws weren't there anymore. I love you, I told him again. I am yours. No one else can have me. No one else will have me. No one will take me away from you. Even if someone did, I would never stop loving my mate. I belonged to him since the moment I came to this world and I would belong to him until the moment I took my last breath. He took a deep, slow breath. I caressed his cheeks again and placed another soft kiss on his lips. His canines retracted. Maddie, he mumbled as he buried his face into my neck. He breathed in my scent slowly and deeply. I placed a kiss on the top of his head. I love you, I told him again. I love you with my entire heart. He wrapped his arms around me and hugged me tightly. I can't even explain how much I love you, Madeline, he said quietly. You are my entire world. I would die if I lost you. I placed another kiss on the top of his head. That will never happen, Dmitri, I said. You will never lose me. I will fight to be by your side forever. This is the only place I want to be. This is my home. You are my home. He lifted his head and captured my lips with his. Home, he mumbled. My home. I smiled a little and caressed his cheek again. I could feel that he was a little bit calmer, and it was everything I wanted and needed. I hated it when he was angry and scared. I hated it when he was upset. Our office door opened and Will peeked inside. Mike is here, he said. We really need to talk to him. We don't have much time. Dmitri nodded and motioned for him to come inside. He took a deep breath and placed a soft kiss on my forehead. I climbed out of his lap and sat on the chair next to him. Thank you, princess. He mind-linked me. I needed this. I gave him a small smile and took his hand in mine. I lifted it and kissed his knuckles. I know. I said. I am always here for you. I will always be here to make it easier. He smiled and tightened his hold on my hand. What happened? Mike asked as soon as he walked inside the room. What's so urgent? Dmitri took a deep breath and looked at him. We need to talk about the security detail for Maddie, he said, pointing at the armchair opposite his desk. Alpha Alistair said something that worries me. I looked at Ali and took a deep breath. She looked confused and I knew that I would have to talk to her as soon as I got the chance. What's wrong, Mads? Ellie mind-linked me. I looked at her and took a deep breath. I will have to talk to Ali and tell her everything. I said. I can see that she is confused. I don't want to keep her in the dark. Ellie gave me a small nod. Let me handle that, okay? She said. You have enough on your plate. You still hadn't talked to Sky. You still hadn't shifted. You have to talk to Oliver about your powers and figure out what to do. Not to mention this whole Alphas meeting and the tournament that starts tonight. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. She was right. I had so many things to do and I had no idea where to even start. Let me help, Mads. She continued. I will explain everything to Ali. I opened my eyes and gave her a small nod. Thank you. I said, making her smile. There is no need to thank me. She said. I am here to help. I smiled at her and focused my attention back on Mike and Dmitri. Mike looked angry, so I could only assume that Dmitri had already told him everything. I want 9 of our best men to keep an eye on each alpha, Dmitri said. Discreetly, of course. I want to know everything about them and their movements while they are in my territory. Even Alpha Alistair? I asked, furrowing my brows a little. Just because he came to tell us that there is a traitor among the Alphas, doesn't mean that I trust him, Princess, Dmitri said. He could be trying to get close to us so he can do something. I won't allow that. I nodded and Dmitri looked back at Mike. Have them followed, Dmitri said sternly. No one makes any move without me knowing about it. Mike nodded and tightened his jaw. We will start following them immediately, Mike said angrily. No one will hurt my daughter. The opening ceremony. Dmitri's POV. The opening ceremony of the Tournament of Three Kingdoms was being held at the battle arena. The entrance to the tournament grounds was adorned with colorful banners and flags featuring the emblems and symbols of the Three Kingdoms. The torches illuminated the entire arena, making me forget that it was almost midnight. The stands were packed. It seemed like every member of my pack decided to come and watch the opening ceremony, and they Introductions of the competitors. It made me happy. It showed other alphas how strong and united my pack was. Are you cold, princess? I asked Maddie as we walked to our assigned seats. She looked at me and shook her head. I am fine, my love. I shivered and turned into a melted pile of human flesh each and every time she called me love. I smiled and pressed a soft kiss on her temple. Will I have to speak? She asked. No, princess, I said as I caressed her soft cheek. I will speak. You will smile and stand by me the entire night. I was nervous because all the alphas and the members of my council would be sitting close to us. I wished we could just sit somewhere else, but it wasn't possible. Don't let go of me, I continued. I want you holding my hand the entire night. Maddie leaned in and placed a kiss on my upper arm. Don't worry, she said softly. I will be by your side the entire time. No one will hurt me. I gulped and took a deep breath. They would have to be crazy to try something while every single member of my pack was there, but I could never be too careful. Maddie was my entire life. I had to make sure she was safe. I can't wait to go back home with you. Maddie mind-linked me. You have to take this dress off me and see what I have underneath. My heart almost stopped. I looked at her and raised an eyebrow. She smiled a little. I don't want to spoil it, but it isn't much. She added as her smile grew. I tightened my jaw and forced myself to take a deep breath. You will be so punished for this, Madeline. I said sternly. You made your king hard just as he is about to speak in front of hundreds of people. Maddie smiled brightly and my heart skipped a beat. My king, one of the alphas greeted me and bowed just as Maddie and I stepped to the area for the members of the court and our guests. I didn't notice which alpha greeted me. I was imagining what Maddie had or didn't have underneath that dress. My entire body tensed up when my eyes landed on Kendrick. He was looking at Maddie and the anger almost exploded inside me. I wanted to claw his eyes out. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to let Skol rip him to unrecognizable pieces. Maddie squeezed my hand tighter. It's okay, my love. She mind-linked me. I am right here. I pulled her even closer to me as we walked among our guests. All the alphas, betas, and lunas bowed and smiled at us. Maddie kept smiling and greeting everyone. I kept my eyes on Kendrick, wishing I could end his pathetic life right then and there. Relax, Dimitri. Will mind-linked me as we approached our seats. He can't hurt her. He can't even come close to her. Will was already sitting in his assigned seat. Ali was next to him. She was looking around in awe, but I also noticed that she was a little bit nervous. Maddie and I sat down and all the chatter in the arena suddenly stopped. Landon stood up and approached the railing in front of us. Everyone looked at him. Hello and welcome to the Tournament of Three Kingdoms, he exclaimed, making everyone cheer and clap. It is so nice to see so many of you here. Thank you all for coming. The crowd cheered and clapped again. Our beloved king will say a few words and then we will meet the participants. Landon added excitedly. I stood up and pulled Maddie with me. We approached the railing, making the people cheer and clap even louder. I smiled and waved at them. Thank you all for coming. I exclaimed and the cheering and the clapping stopped. It is so nice to see you all here. My queen and I are so happy and proud to be the leaders of such a wonderful pack. Maddie smiled brightly and waved at them. The cheering and clapping started again, this time even louder. Luna. I heard a few excited screams coming from the stands. I smiled brightly. Our people loved her so much. I waited until the cheering quieted down a bit. The tournament will be exciting, I continued. Our Ellie had to step down due to some personal reasons, but the remaining 9 participants are ready and excited to begin. The crowd clapped loudly. The first task, the moonlight duels, will start in 2 days when there will be a full moon, I continued. I am excited to see who the winner of the duels will be. The crowd cheered and clapped again. I smiled and waited for them to finish. I will let our Lord Chancellor, Landon, introduce our participants, I said. I am looking forward to spending time with you all at the party after the opening ceremony ends. The crowd cheered and clapped again. Maddie and I waved at them and we walked back to our seats. I lifted Maddie's hand and kissed her knuckles. You are going to the party? Will asked quietly as soon as we sat down. I sighed and gave him a small nod. We have to, I mumbled. I don't really want to, but we can't avoid it. As much as I wanted to take Maddie back home where she was safe, we had to spend some time with our guests and the members of our pack. Mike and I have it covered, I added. Maddie won't be alone for a second. I would go insane if something happened. Mike and I made sure that someone I trusted was always close to her. I wasn't planning on letting her go or leaving her at any moment, but I never knew what could happen. I had to make sure my princess was safe. I took a deep breath, kissed Maddie's temple, and focused on Landon and his introduction of the participants. We should have lunch. Madeline's POV. I kept a smile on my face as Dimitri and I walked through the crowd. Everyone wanted to talk to us. Everyone wanted to see us up close. We saw the members of our pack every day, but I felt like something was special about tonight. Luna, one of the workers at the pack house, exclaimed. You look wonderful. Thank you, Katie, I said as I gave her a small smile. You look amazing yourself. She blushed and a small smile spread across her face. Thank you, Luna, she said shyly. I smiled brightly and continued walking through the crowd, shaking hands and greeting everyone I could. You look stunning, my queen, I heard Kendrick's voice and I tensed up immediately. Dimitri's hold on me tightened and I felt the anger boiling inside him. I used every ounce of strength I had to help him remain calm. Thank you, Kendrick, I said, giving him a small smile. It is nice to see you. It's been too long, my queen, he said. We only see each other in meetings. That is such a shame. I kept a smile on my face even though I just wanted to run and hide. I was afraid that I would somehow hear his thoughts again. I didn't want to know what he was thinking. I could see it in his eyes and in the way he was looking at me. It's the nature of our relationship, Kendrick, Dimitri responded instead of me. We are working together. You are a member of the council. Kendrick looked at him and his jaw twitched. I know, my king, he said. I just wish our relationship was not just professional. Dimitri tightened his hold on me even more. I forced myself to keep smiling. Madeline, I heard Ellie's voice and I looked to my right. She approached us, eyeing Kendrick up and down. She had a forced smile on her face. I came to take you away, she said, looking at Dimitri. The Lunas wish to spend some time with their queen. Dimitri tensed up, but Ellie raised an eyebrow at him. I could tell they were mind-linking each other. Dimitri looked around and took a deep breath. Go, princess, he said as he leaned in and kissed my temple. I will come to get you as soon as I can. I nodded and Dimitri let me go. Ellie took my hand in hers and started leading me away. Kendrick bowed at me as I walked away. What was that? I asked Ellie as soon as we walked away. I never thought that Dimitri would agree to you taking me away. Well, the Lunas really want to talk to you, Ellie said. And I saw both Landon and Alpha Lucius approaching. I knew that Dimitri would lose his shit if you were surrounded by so many people he despises. I turned around and saw Alpha Lucius and Landon talking to Dimitri and Kendrick. Dimitri looked like he was going to burst any second. I focused on him and tried to take as much anger as I could away from him. I saw him take a deep breath and his posture relaxed a little. I smiled and turned back toward Ellie. We reached Ellie and the Lunas. I smiled as I approached them. My queen, Luna Abigail said and bowed a little. Thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure, Luna Abigail, I said. I am happy to be here with all of you. I came to stand next to Ellie and she gave me a small smile. She looked around with a nervous expression on her face. Ellie told her everything about me and I could tell that Ellie was afraid that something would happen. I couldn't wait until Dimitri made her a member of our pack so I could mind link her. I needed to reassure her and tell her that everything would be okay. I could still see Dimitri from where I was standing. Mike was just a few feet away from us and I could feel his eyes on me. Will was also somewhere close. I couldn't see him, but I knew that he wouldn't go far. I was safe. We were safe. I couldn't mind link her to reassure her so I just squeezed her hand tightly and gave her a small smile. We would love to spend more time with you while we are here, my queen, Luna Mary said, drawing my attention back to the Lunas. We just talked about how nice it would be if we had lunch together, Luna Wendy said. Just us ladies. I smiled and nodded. Of course, I said. I would love it. I am sorry I haven't been around much. There is just so much to do. Oh, don't apologize, my queen, Luna Abigail said, smiling and shaking her head. I get all worked up when I have one guest in my home. I can't even imagine having 9 alphas and their entourage. I smiled and gave her a small nod. It's challenging, but I love having you here, I said politely. It's exciting to be a part of the tournament and the meetings. I agree, Luna Natasha said. I wish we were meeting in different circumstances, though. I nodded and took a deep breath. I am sure that our mates will find a solution. I looked to my left and saw Dimitri looking at me. I smiled at him. Are you okay, princess? He mind-linked me. I am fine, my love. I said, trying to sound calm and reassuring. I can't wait to feel your arms around me. I could see Dimitri gulp. Soon, princess. He said. I keep imagining what is under that dress, you know? I raised an eyebrow and smirked a little. Nothing, my king. I said quietly. Everything is bare and ready to be touched by you. His eyes widened and I saw his muscles clench. Madeline. He growled through the mind link. Do you have any idea how hard I will tonight? I smiled and tilted my head a little. His words made my lower belly tingle. I can't wait, Alpha. I said. I am already ready for you. His jaw tightened and he narrowed his eyes at me. Look away or I am grabbing you and taking you away right now. He said sternly. I winked at him and looked back at the Lunas. They were talking about the tournament and I forced myself to smile and focus on them. I couldn't wait to go home with Dimitri. His need for me only grew with all the dangers around us. I couldn't wait to show him that I was here and that I belonged to him and him only. Lock the door. Dimitri's POV. I ran my hands up and down Maddie's body. Last night was amazing. The way her body felt pressed against mine was amazing. The way she moaned and screamed my name as she was amazing. You were perfect yesterday, I mumbled as I kissed her neck. You were riding me so good. I remembered how she is perfect in front of me and I couldn't help but grunt. I was so hard just remembering it and it wasn't really convenient. We are doing that again tonight, I said. I need you to ride me like that again, am I clear? I finally looked at her and saw that she was blushing and panting a little. Am I clear? I repeated as I gently bit her earlobe. Yes, she cried out, her voice laced with pleasure. I can't wait for do again tonight, I said as I kissed the side of her neck gently. I can't wait to lick them and bite them. I could smell her arousal. She started. Are you a little bit impatient, my queen? I mumbled as I lifted my hips and pressed myself against her. Do you want this? Yes, she cried out. Please. I need it. I need you. I really wasn't planning on her. Oliver was on his way here. Mike and Will were coming. It really wasn't convenient. But hearing her beg me threw my rational thinking out the window. I growled. You are not being a very good girl, I growled in her ear. We don't have time for this. We didn't have time for this. I just wanted to hear her beg. Will? I mind-linked him. Yes? He responded immediately. Nobody comes inside until I tell you to. I ordered. Wait in front of my office. Yes, Alpha. He said. Do you want me to stop? No, please, no, she cried. You will be a very good girl and you are going to go lock the door, I said, lowering my voice until it was as deep as I knew she liked. You will take your clothes off on your way back. I grunted. She was perfect. After you do that, you will straddle your king and you will FK him just like you did last night, I added, making her shiver and moan. Do you understand? I asked. She was soaking wet, and I had to stop myself from moaning loudly. Yes, Alpha, she cried out. I moved my hands so she could stand up. She whined in protest. I made her stand up and I slapped her. Faster, I ordered. She rushed toward the door, taking her shirt off as she ran. I couldn't help but chuckle. I stood up and making sure that she could just sit as soon as she came back. I was as impatient as she was. I sat back down and started touching myself as I watched her lock the door. She turned around and looked at me. I saw her eyes widen when she saw me waiting for her. I grabbed her arm as soon as she was close enough. Dmitri, she cried out, tangling her fingers into my hair. I started her again, making her cry out and moan loudly. I was so happy that our office was soundproof because my queen wasn't quiet. Please, she cried out. Please. Her begging was music to my ears. I lifted my head and sat back in my chair. On my lap, I ordered. Now. Both of us grunted and moaned. My eyes rolled to the back of my head when she finally managed to take all of me in. Finally, she cried out, resting her forehead on my shoulder. She started me slowly and I couldn't help but groan. It was perfect. She was perfect. Yes, my queen. By the end of it, we were both shivering, panting, and moaning quietly. I love you, Madeline, I told her after I finally managed to get some air into my lungs. I love you too, she mumbled, relaxing into my arms completely. I smiled and kissed the top of her head. My love, I mumbled. My entire world. My powers. Madeline's POV. I can't answer that, Oliver sighed, shaking his head at Dmitri. I could feel anger rising inside my mate and I did my best to stop it. What can you answer, Oliver? Dmitri asked angrily. We don't know anything about her powers. Oliver looked at me and nodded. We know what's written in the books, Oliver said. I wasn't able to find anything about our issue, my king. I can't tell you why she could hear Kendrick's thoughts. I shivered when I remembered it. I really didn't want to hear something like that again. How is that possible, Oliver? Dmitri asked, narrowing his eyes. You are a healer, aren't you? You need to find a solution. Oliver opened his mouth to speak, but I interrupted him. It's okay, Oliver, I said, giving him a small smile. You did your best. Thank you for trying. Madeline, Dmitri said but stopped talking when I gave him a stern look. There aren't many books left from the kingdoms, Dmitri, I said. You know that. Oliver did his best. Dmitri raised an eyebrow at me. I could see that he wasn't happy with me. I didn't care. Oliver did his best. The powers I had were unusual. We couldn't expect Oliver to have all the answers. So what are we supposed to do? Mike asked and I could hear worry in his voice. We are supposed to take care of her and make sure that she is safe, Oliver said, drawing my attention back to him. He looked from Mike to me. You need to let us know about any changes you notice, he said. You need to let us know if you can hear Kendrick's thoughts while you are with Dmitri. You need to let us know what he thinks, Will added. There has to be a reason why you could hear his and Janet's thoughts. It wasn't a coincidence. I nodded and looked back at Dmitri. He was glaring at everyone and he looked like he was going to explode. It was getting harder and harder for me to control his anger. I know you want answers immediately, but it just can't be done, I said as I reached out and took his hand in mine. The powers I have are complicated. We need time to figure them out. Dmitri tightened his jaw and took a deep breath. I want you safe, he said. I want to know exactly what you can do and I want to know exactly what it all means so I can protect you. I smiled and caressed his cheek. You already did, I said softly. I have more security than any other person alive. I would be surprised if someone managed to hurt me. I chuckled and Dmitri growled. Try not to worry so much, my love, I said softly. I am safe. Nothing is going to happen to me. Dmitri pulled me closer and kissed my temple. If you would be willing to leave her, Oliver spoke, but Dmitri's loud growl interrupted him. No. Dmitri yelled and I felt anger boiling inside him. I am not leaving her. He wrapped his arms around me and I felt him shaking. You didn't let me finish, Alpha, Oliver said calmly. Your Beta and Mike would be with her. If you are not there, maybe she could figure out who is trying to take your throne. Dmitri took a deep breath and released it slowly. I am not risking anything, he said. I will find out who the bastard is, but I won't put my maid in danger to do it. She wouldn't be in danger, Alpha, Oliver said. Your Beta and her father would be there. Yes, Dmitri interrupted him. I trust them both, but it's not just about that. It's not easy for Maddie to read minds. It's exhausting and her head starts hurting. I don't want her in pain. I will find another way. I smiled and caressed his cheek. I loved him with my entire heart. Dmitri looked at me and leaned in to place a soft kiss on my cheek. I am not using her for this, he said, stroking my hair gently. I will find another way. I cupped his cheek and placed a soft kiss on his lips. I am willing to help, Dmitri, I said. If I can find something and it can help avoid. No, he said sternly. What if they figure out what you can do? What if they somehow find out who you are? I don't want you exposed. I don't want them to know. They can't know. I glanced at Will. Can you help me? I mind-linked him. He sighed and furrowed his brows. I agree with him, Maddie. He said. But... He stopped talking and took a deep breath. Lunch with the Lunas, Will said, making Dimitri look at him. Ali and Ellie will be there with her. Maybe one of the Lunas knows something. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? I didn't say she could go to that, Dimitri said, growling quietly. I sighed and made him look back at me. We are in the middle of a very important event, I said. You can't keep me away from everything, Dimitri. It's going to look suspicious. Dimitri tightened his jaw. She is right, Dimitri, Will said. I understand that you want to keep her safe, but you can't lock her up and keep her away from everything and everyone. She is a queen. She has duties. It will look suspicious if she doesn't fulfill them. I could feel fear rising in Dimitri. I placed my hand on his back and rubbed it gently. Nothing will happen to me. I mind-linked him. I am safe, my love. You are keeping me safe. He looked at me and wrapped his arm around my waist. Fine, he mumbled. She can go to lunch with the Lunas. I gave him a small smile and he leaned his forehead against mine. Will you be okay with so many people around you, Mads? Mike asked, making me look at him. Will you be able to handle it? Dimitri's head fell on my shoulder and I placed a hand on his head, holding him close. I gave a small smile to Mike. I will be okay, I said. I found a way to keep their thoughts away. At least for a little while. Mike's eyes widened a little. How? It's hard for me to explain, I said. I'm trying to imagine a wall around my mind. It helps. Mike smiled at me. That's great, Maddie, Oliver said. You need to make sure that you are okay. You can't let it overwhelm you. I gave him a small nod. Ali and Ellie will make sure that everything is okay, Will said. I will tell them what to do if... Maddie. Sky called me and I stopped listening to Will. I want to shift tonight. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure if I was. You are ready, Sky said sternly. You have to stop denying who you are, Madeline. You have to stop pushing me away. I gulped and tried to take a deep breath. I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure if I would ever be ready. Sky. Dimitri's POV. Why can't we go to the forest to do this? Maddie asked as I closed our bedroom door. And risk someone seeing you? I said, shaking my head at her. I am not letting that happen, Madeline. You will shift here. The room was big enough for her to do it here. Sky would have to wait to go on a run. It wasn't safe. Maddie approached the fireplace and looked at the flames. I saw worry in her eyes and it made my heart hurt. Maddie, princess, what's wrong? I asked her. She is still angry at Sky, Skol sighed. She doesn't want to shift. I sighed and walked closer to Maddie. I wrapped my arms around her from behind and kissed her temple. She took a deep breath and leaned into me. Sky did it all to protect you, princess, I said softly. She loves you so much. Maddie remained silent. It was driving me crazy. I needed to know what she was thinking. Princess, I called her again. She sighed and looked up at me. I caressed her cheek and leaned in to kiss her softly. Talk to me, princess, I mumbled against her lips. She took a deep breath and rested her head on my chest. I was melting inside. Knowing that I was her comfort made me the happiest man on this planet. I ran my hands up and down her body and pressed her even closer to me. I am not ready, she mumbled. I am not ready for it to become real. I sighed and placed a kiss on her forehead. It is already real, princess, I said. Letting Sky out won't change anything. She is a Leekan. You are a descendant of the Gold Fang's kingdom. It is your reality, Maddie. I felt her tense up. Please, love, talk to me, I said quietly. Tell me what you are thinking. I need to know. Maddie looked up at me and gulped. A part of me still thinks that I am not. She stopped talking and I saw tears form in her eyes. I was pretty sure that I knew the end of that sentence. I cupped her cheeks and sighed. You are my mate, I said softly. You are my queen. You are the love of my life. You deserve it, Maddie. You were meant to be mine. There is no one else who is meant to be standing here with me. I leaned in and kissed her. There is no one else I am meant to kiss, I added quietly. There is no one else I am meant to love. She wrapped her arms around me tightly and kissed me hard. I tangled my fingers into her hair and kept her close to me. I love you, Dmitri, she said after she stopped kissing me. I love you with everything that I have. I smiled and rested my forehead against hers. I know, princess, I said. I can feel it. I caressed my cheeks and ran my hands down her body. I unbuttoned her jeans and she took a deep breath. I gently started taking her shirt off. She lifted her hands so I could pull it over her head. I threw the shirt to the side and leaned in to place a kiss on her collarbone. The taste of her skin made my heart skip a beat. Will it hurt? She asked, her voice trembling a little. I got down on my knees and placed a soft kiss on her lower belly. A little bit, I said as I started taking her jeans and her underwear off. I will be here every step of the way. Don't worry, princess. She stepped out of her jeans and I threw them to the side as well. I looked up at her and smiled. I love you, I told her. She ran her fingers through my hair and I sighed contently. Is Sky ready? I asked and she gave me a small nod. I kissed her thigh and stood back up. I placed another kiss on her lips and gave her a small smile. Sky will know what to do, I said. Just give her control, okay? Maddie nodded. I saw nervousness on her face and it made me sad. I wished I could do it for her. I caressed her cheek and took a few steps back. She clenched her fists and took a deep breath. Close your eyes, princess, I said softly. Let Sky take over. Maddie listened to me and closed her eyes. I saw her tense up and furrow her brows. I wanted to take her into my arms, but I knew I couldn't. Not until she shifted. Maddie fell to her knees and a scream escaped her lips. My entire body tensed up and I had to fight against every instinct I had. I wanted to grab her and make the pain go away, but I knew I couldn't. It's okay, princess, I said, my voice trembling. It will only hurt for a moment, I promise. Maddie groaned and fell to her side. She opened her eyes and tried to take a deep breath. My muscles were completely clenched. I was like a coiled spring, just wanting to throw myself at her and stop the pain. It's okay, princess, it's okay, I mumbled. Just a few more moments. Another scream escaped her lips and I saw fur appearing on her arms. My entire body started trembling with the need to go to her. Just a little bit longer, princess, I muttered, gritting my teeth. Just a little bit longer. Maddie started thrashing a little. She was panting hard and quiet whimpers kept escaping her lips. I was on the verge of losing my shit. I hated seeing her in pain. I hated it. Dmitri, she cried out for me and I almost lost it. No, Dmitri, Skol said sternly. It's almost over. I gulped and used every bit of strength I had to stay where I was. It's almost over, princess, I said, my voice trembling. It's almost over. Maddie screamed loudly and I saw her claws extend. Skol tensed up. I felt his need for Sky wash over me. Maddie thrashed again and I saw her body transform into the most beautiful Lycan I ever laid my eyes on. Skol and I gasped at the same time. She was beautiful. Her fur was black and shiny. Her claws and canines were white and the flames from the fireplace made them look like they were sparkling. She was small, but I could tell that she was going to be a powerful wolf. She was just so beautiful and I couldn't take my eyes off her. She whined quietly and opened her eyes. Sky, I mumbled, making her look at me. She whined and I was next to her in a second. Let me out! Skol exclaimed, pushing to be free. Give me a second, okay? I mumbled as I buried my nose into her fur. Just 1 second. You are beautiful, princess, I mumbled as I picked her up. You are so beautiful. She nuzzled her snout into my chest and I smiled. It is so wonderful to finally meet you, Sky, I mumbled. I love you so much. She licked my neck and I laughed. Dmitri, Skol cried out and I could feel him trembling with need for her. Do you want to meet Skol? I asked her and she whined loudly. I chuckled and ran my fingers through her soft fur. I will take that as a yes, I said as I smiled at her. I placed a kiss on her snout and I let her go. I stood up so I could shift. Skol took over faster than ever. He grabbed Sky and whined loudly. He was finally holding his mate in his arms. Learn how to fight. Madeline's POV. I woke up with a terrible headache. Hey, princess, Dmitri said quietly and I felt his lips on my temple. The headache lessened instantly. I smiled a little and turned my head toward him. I opened my eyes slowly and his handsome face made my heart skip a beat. How are you, my love? He asked softly. I sighed and furrowed my brows. I am still a bit tired, I said. And my head hurts. Dmitri pulled me closer and placed another kiss on my temple. I smiled and ran my hands up and down his body. What time is it? I asked, closing my eyes and leaning my head on his chest. 8 he said. You fell asleep right after you shifted back. I got a bit worried, to be honest. You kind of passed out. But it's normal. Shifting for the first time can be exhausting. Shifted back? And then I remembered. I shifted. I couldn't believe I forgot about that. I opened my eyes and looked up at him. He smiled and caressed my cheek. Sky is beautiful, he said with so much love in his voice that I couldn't stop a shiver going down my spine. Skol is head over heels in love with her. I gulped and took a deep breath. Is she really? I mumbled, but I couldn't finish my question. Dmitri nodded and gave me a small smile. We already knew that, princess, he said. Did you really think that she would turn out to be a regular wolf? I looked at his chest and tightened my jaw. I hoped that she would. I hoped that they were wrong about me. I hoped I wasn't a Lycan. I hoped that everything was just a big mistake. Oh, princess, Dmitri mumbled as he placed a kiss on my forehead. She is amazing and I love her with all my heart. She is a part of you and I don't want her to be anything or anyone else. I felt tears burning the corners of my eyes. I loved her too, but I was still so angry. Why did she keep it from me? Why didn't she want to shift when I turned 18? She left me alone. I was so scared back then and she left me alone. I desperately needed someone and she chose to leave me. What if Dmitri didn't turn out to be my mate? What if I left the pack and got killed because she refused to shift? She left me alone when I needed her the most. Maddie, she spoke, but I pushed her back. I didn't want to talk to her. Skol is completely in love with her, Dmitri continued, chuckling a little. He refused to shift back for hours. He only shifted back when Sky did and when you fell asleep in his arms. I looked up at Dmitri and forced a small smile on my face. I am so happy for Skol, I said quietly. Dmitri leaned in and placed a soft kiss on my lips. He loves you just as much, he mumbled. You two are his greatest treasure. I smiled and ran my fingers through Dmitri's. He groaned quietly and caressed my back. Can I FK you, princess? He asked, his voice deep and raspy. Please. I was about to tell him yes when we were interrupted by a knock on the door. Dmitri growled and stopped what he was doing. I wanted to whine. Are you kidding me? He muttered and got out of bed. I looked at him and I wanted to drool. I couldn't understand how it was possible for him to be as perfect as he was. His legs were made of muscles. His entire body was made of muscles. He clenched as he walked and I just wanted him back in this bed so I could ride him. I wanted his hands on my body. I wanted those strong, muscular hands to wrap around me and press me against his broad chest. I wanted him inside me. I wanted him on me. I wanted him everywhere. Madeline, he growled as he put his sweatpants on. Stop it. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from smiling. He growled at me again and approached the bedroom door. What? He asked angrily as he opened the door. Is Maddie ready? I heard Ellie's voice. I furrowed my brows. Ready for what? Dmitri looked at me with a confused expression on his face. Don't tell me she forgot, Ellie sighed. Mike is waiting for us. Forgot about what? Dmitri asked, looking back at Ellie. I groaned when I remembered. Our first training session is today, Ellie said. Mike is waiting for us at the center. I mumbled as I threw the blanket off and stood up. I will be ready in a second, Ellie. No, Dmitri said sternly, closing the door a little so Ellie couldn't see me. She just shifted for the first time yesterday and I can't go with you to the center today. Ellie sighed again and I could practically hear her rolling her eyes. She will be fine, Dmitri, Ellie said. I will be there. Her dad is there. She needs to learn how to fight. I opened the bathroom door and rushed to get ready. She is right, Dmitri, I shouted. I will be okay. I need to start practicing. Dmitri closed the bedroom door and walked toward the bathroom. I will be right there, Ellie. I mind-linked her. I'm waiting. She responded. Hurry up. We are already late. I don't agree with this, Maddie, Dmitri said as he walked inside the bathroom. I can't go with you and I don't want you to go alone. I spit out the toothpaste and looked at him. I won't be alone, I mumbled as I continued to brush my teeth. Ellie and Mike will be there. Dmitri rolled his eyes at me. They can't protect you like I can, he said angrily. No one can protect you like I can. I sighed and turned around to rinse my mouth. Dmitri was right behind me when I turned back around. I wrapped my arms around his waist and rested my chin on his chest. I smiled at him. I know that, I said. But I need to learn how to protect myself. He cupped my cheeks and frowned. I can protect you, he mumbled, and I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. He could sometimes be so stubborn. I know you can, I said as I caressed his muscular back. And you are doing it so well. But you know I need to learn, Dmitri. I am safe with them. He tightened his jaw and gulped. And we can shower together after, I said, smirking a little. I will need some help taking my clothes off. Dmitri groaned and bent down to kiss me softly. Fine, he mumbled against my lips. But we are definitely showering together after. I smiled and nodded. And you will mind-link me immediately if something happens, he said sternly. Do you understand me? Immediately. I gave him another nod and he placed another kiss on my lips. Long time. Madeline's POV. Come on, Mads. Mike yelled. Left, right, duck. I did everything but ducked. Ellie slammed her body against mine and we fell on the mat. She pinned me down and grinned. You need to be faster, she said, and I groaned. I wanted to be faster, but I was so tired already. I felt like we'd been doing that for hours. That was good, Mads, Mike said. But Ellie is right. You really need to be faster. Ellie let me go and stood up. I decided to stay down. Come on, Maddie, Ellie said, extending her hand to help me get up. Let's go again. I shook my head. Nope. I am done for today. I was panting hard and I was sweating out of every pore on my body. I couldn't fight anymore. I wanted to go home, shower, and sleep. Maddie, you have to, Ellie spoke, but Mike interrupted her. It's okay, Ellie, Mike said. We've done enough for today. She shifted yesterday and she is tired. Ellie looked at Mike and nodded. Mike gave me his hand and I grabbed it. You are good, Mads, Mike said as he pulled me up. Have you practiced with anyone before? I shook my head and looked around for my water bottle. Ellie gave it to me. Then you are just talented, Mike grinned. Like your father. I chuckled and Ellie rolled her eyes at Mike. She is good, but she needs to be faster, Ellie said, giving me a stern look. I sighed and took another big sip of water. She will be with practice, Mike said as he stroked my hair. She is already amazing. He leaned in and kissed my temple. I looked at him and smiled. Okay, if we are done then we should go, Ellie said. Dmitri mind-linked me like 1,000 times to ask me if we were coming back soon. She rolled her eyes and I chuckled. She gave me my hoodie and I put it back on. He is worrying too much, Mike sighed, shaking his head. Maddie is surrounded by people who would do anything for her. She is safe. Mike looked at me and pulled me into a hug. You are safe with me, honey, he said softly. You know that, right? I hugged him back and smiled. I know, Mike, I said, and he rubbed my back gently. I should have noticed that something was going on with Janet, Mike said quietly. I should have protected you, honey. I am so sorry I didn't. I let him go and looked up at him. It wasn't your fault, Mike, I said, shaking my head. I told you that. You can't blame yourself. Mike gulped and shook his head a little. It's hard not to, honey, he said quietly. I've been there with you every day. How didn't I see it happening? How didn't I hear it? I took a deep breath and released it slowly. She mostly did it while you were gone, I said. You couldn't have known. Mike tightened his jaw and I saw fury in his eyes. Have you talked to her since she was imprisoned? Ellie asked quietly. Mike looked at her and shook his head. I don't want to see her or talk to her. I sighed and furrowed my brows a little. Maybe you should, I said, making him look back at me. She is your mate. You need closure. Mike shook his head immediately. No, he said with determination in his voice. I don't need anything from her. I need to forget that she ever existed. I sighed and glanced at Ellie. That was going to be hard. She was his mate. They were together for years. He loved her. He couldn't just move on and forget about her. Go home to Dimitri, honey, Mike said as he placed another kiss on my temple. I am sure that he can't wait to see you. It's been almost 3 hours since you left him. I smiled and gave Mike a small nod. I looked at Ellie and I was just about to tell her that we should go when someone called my name. Mads. I heard Seth's voice and looked behind me. He smiled and started approaching me. Hi, Seth, I said, smiling back at him. He was going to hug me, but Ellie stopped him. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Ellie said warningly. Alpha is going to be able to smell her on you and that won't end well, trust me. I want him to smell me on her. Seth's thought caught me off guard and I had to stop myself from gasping. I was doing such a good job keeping Mike and Ellie's thoughts away. I kept my focus on the fight and I would force the wall around my brain up every time a small glimpse of their thoughts entered my mind. Seth's thoughts felt like he was screaming them. They felt loud and filled with anger and anticipation. Seth looked at me and I forced myself to keep smiling. I focused on the wall around my mind, trying to imagine it as thicker and taller. I didn't want to hear his thoughts again. You were practicing? Seth asked and I gave him a small nod. Yes, we were, Ellie said. We are on our way back to the pack house. Seth glanced at her and I could tell that he was annoyed by her defensiveness. I will leave you kids alone, Mike said as he gave me another short hug. I have work to do. Bye, Mike, I said as I gave him a small smile. He grabbed his stuff and walked away toward his office. How about breakfast at the diner? Seth asked, drawing my attention back at him. My mom would love to see you. I was just about to answer him, but Ellie beat me to it. We don't have time, she said. Alpha needs us to come back. Seth tightened his jaw and looked at Ellie. I was asking Maddie, not you, he said angrily. Ellie's eyes widened and I saw anger flash in them. I needed to take over before they got into a fight. Ellie is right, Seth, I said, keeping a small smile on my face. I would love to go, but I can't today. Dimitri wants me to come back. We have a lot to do. The tournament starts tomorrow. Seth sighed and I saw sadness in his eyes. My heart clenched. I was a terrible friend. He was so nice to me. He was the only one who accepted me when I first came here. Are you sure, Mads? He asked. It's been a long time since we hung out. I miss you. I gulped and took a deep breath. The guilt I felt intensified. I will talk to Dimitri and ask him if we could have dinner at the diner tonight, I said. I would love to hang out with you too. Dimitri will never say yes to that, Maddie. Ellie mind-linked me. Seth wants you and Dimitri won't allow him near you. I ignored her and kept my focus on Seth. I owed him so much. I couldn't be rude and forget that he was my friend. I am looking forward to that, Mads, Seth said, smiling brightly. I will see you tonight. I smiled at him and looked at Ellie. I could tell that she wasn't happy. Let's go, Madeline, she said, grabbing our stuff and taking my hand in hers. Bye, Seth, I said as she started dragging me away. Bye, Mads, he said. See you later. I smiled at him and looked back at Ellie. Madeline? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Yes, she said as she opened the door. I am angry at you. I sighed and shook my head at her. He is my friend, Ellie, I said. I owe him a lot. Ellie looked at me and rolled her eyes. You owe him nothing, Maddie, she mumbled. He wants you for himself and you can't let him have you. I furrowed my brows and I felt sadness and worry wash over me. Did she really think I would do something like that to Dimitri? Did she really think so little of me? Fight. Madeline's POV. I was already on the verge of tears and seeing Dimitri's angry face when we walked into our office didn't really help. Were you going to tell me about that? He asked angrily, crossing his arms over his chest. I looked at Ellie and she just raised an eyebrow at me. I just walked in, Dimitri, I said, looking back at him. When was I supposed to tell you? What? Will asked, furrowing his brows. The way Dimitri was looking at me was breaking my heart. He was angry. He was disappointed. He looked at me like I did something horrible. I told you to mind-link me if anything happened, he said, tightening his jaw. You should have mind-linked me the second he approached you. Who approached her? Will asked worriedly. Seth, Ellie said, sighing loudly. He asked her to go to the diner with him. Will mumbled a curse and looked at Dimitri. Who is Seth? Ellie asked quietly. Everyone ignored her. Dimitri was getting more and more angry by the second. I wanted him to look away because his eyes were burning my skin. Why didn't you mind-link me, Madeline? He asked angrily. My chest tightened. It felt like a hand squeezed my lungs. Because he isn't a threat, I said quietly. He's a friend. Who wants to FK you? Dimitri interrupted me, slamming his fist against the desk. Please explain to me how he isn't a threat, Madeline. I tried to take a deep breath, but I couldn't. I was so tired. I just wanted to take a hot shower and go to sleep. I wanted Dimitri to go back to the way he was this morning. Why was he so angry at me? Did I really make such a big mistake? I told him no. Calm down, Dimitri, Will sighed. Dimitri looked at him and I thought he was going to punch him. Talk to me when there is a man who would want to FK your mate, Dimitri said, looking back at me. Will clenched his fists and took a deep breath. Explain, Madeline, Dimitri growled at me. I could feel my heart cracking. Because I would never let him do anything, I said quietly. I don't want him. I don't love him. Did Dimitri really think that I would ever let Seth do anything? I talked to him about it. I told him that I loved my mate. Seth knew that nothing could ever happen between us. My heart shattered and I could feel my stomach twisting. I was going to throw up. Was Dimitri afraid I would do something? Did he think that I would cheat on him? Did he think that I would leave him? Didn't he trust me? Oh, but you want to go to dinner with him? Dimitri asked mockingly. I glanced at Ellie and furrowed my brows. Didn't she tell him that I told Seth I would ask Dimitri if we could go, not just me? No, I said, and it was getting harder and harder for me to hide the pain in my voice. I told him I would ask you if you and I could go. I would never go alone with him. Dimitri narrowed his eyes and tightened his jaw. You don't trust me, do you? I asked, my voice trembling. You think that I would cheat on you? I felt tears burning the corners of my eyes. My own wolf refused to shift and she left me alone. My mate didn't trust me. He thought that I would cheat and leave him. He would probably leave me too. He would leave me just like my wolf left me. He would leave me just like my father left me. Everyone abandoned me. My father, my mother, my pack, my wolf. I always ended up alone. He was going to leave me too. He didn't trust me. No, Madeline, he said, but I didn't believe him. I don't trust him. My head was throbbing and my stomach was in a knot. I felt like I was going to throw up. He didn't believe me. He didn't trust me. He would leave me just like everyone else did. I should have left when I had the chance. I should have left when Janet told me to leave. Madeline. Sky screamed at me, but I ignored her. I pushed her back as far as I could. She left me. I didn't need her. My heart was going a mile a minute. I felt like I was going to pass out. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of this office. I needed to get away from them. I was on the verge of crying and I didn't want to do it in front of them. You are not allowed to see him, Madeline, Dmitri said, but I could barely hear him. You are not allowed to talk to him ever again. My heart was going to jump out of my throat. I could only hear my blood rushing through my veins. My lungs kept getting tighter and tighter. I couldn't get enough air in. He thought I would cheat. He didn't trust me. He didn't want me. He would leave me. I felt Sky trying to push through, but I used every bit of strength I had left to keep her away. I could see Dimitri's lips moving, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, though. I could hear how fast it was beating. I had to get out of there. Immediately. I forced my legs to move and I started running out of there. I couldn't breathe anymore. Madeline! Dimitri screamed. Where are you going? I ignored him and just continued running. Give her some space, I heard someone saying. She will come back. Some space. Dmitri screamed. Some space. I don't. I couldn't hear the rest because I covered my ears. I didn't want to hear the rest. I didn't want to hear anything anymore. I felt warm tears rolling down my cheeks and I broke down sobbing. Thankfully, I was just outside of my room so no one saw me. I got inside and closed the door. My knees buckled and I fell to the floor. I couldn't stop sobbing and gasping for air. He didn't trust me. He didn't want me. He would leave me. Would he go back to Savannah? Would he start a family with her? Would he raise her child? Would he love her? Madeline, no. I heard Sky screaming, but I ignored her. She didn't want me. She refused to shift. She left me alone. I didn't want to hear her voice. I didn't want to talk to her. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I wanted my mom. I really, really wanted my mom. I wanted her to hold me. I wanted her to tell me that everything was going to be okay. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted to see her. I just wanted my mom. Another sob broke through my lips and I pulled my knees to my chest. Mom, I cried out. She was the only one who didn't leave me. She was taken from me. She was taken too soon and she was taken when I needed her the most. Maddie? Will's mind link made me flinch. Where are you? I ignored him. I didn't want to talk to him. I wanted my mom. Sky whined loudly. Maddie, just tell me where you are, please. Will mind-linked me again. I didn't want to. He would come here and I didn't want him here. He probably thought I would cheat on Dmitri too. He probably already advised him to leave me. I felt the shattered pieces of my heart stab my insides. A pain I never felt before made me scream. He was going to leave me. I lost him. I lost my mate. Panic. Dimitri's POV. I was seething with rage. Did Seth really think I would let him take her from me? Did he really think that I would let him anywhere near her? I was going to end his miserable life before he could blink. I wanted to follow Madeline, but Will stopped me. He told me that he wanted me to calm down a little before I went to find her. The only reason I stayed was because I could feel that she was close. She was probably in our room. If I felt her leave the pack house, I would have torn it down with my own two hands. I kept pacing around the office, clenching my fists and growling. The anger was pulsating in my blood and I couldn't see the end of it. Did you really have to go off on her like that? Will sighed, making me look at him. I narrowed my eyes and clenched my fists. She didn't do anything wrong, Dmitri, Will said. Kendrick pissed you off and you took it out on her. You need to apologize. Will was right. Kendrick did piss me off. He came to my office earlier and demanded to continue our meeting regarding my mother's punishment. I did my best to explain to him that I wouldn't be holding any meetings until the Alpha's meeting was over. He kept insisting and I had to order him to leave my office. He pissed me off so much. I was ready to explode when he left my office. It was actually a bit strange. I never felt anger overwhelming me as much as it did then. If Will hadn't stopped me, I would probably go out and kill him. But Maddie did do something wrong. She should have mind-linked me the moment he approached her. She needs to apologize to me, I said angrily. I saw an angry flash in Will's eyes. She didn't do anything wrong, Dmitri, he exclaimed. She talked to him and told him no. She did everything she was supposed to do. I clenched my fists and narrowed my eyes at him. She should have mind-linked me immediately, I said. I should have gone there and made sure that. What? Will interrupted me. That he didn't ask her to breakfast? Oh, come on Dmitri. The kid is in love with her. Is that disrespectful toward you? Yes. Is he fooling himself into thinking that something would happen between them? Probably. But would he hurt her? I don't think so. You are blowing this way out of proportion and you hurt your mate. I don't think he is overreacting, Ellie said. Seth really likes her. He could try something. Just thinking about him touching her had me growling ferociously. She was mine. Dmitri. Skol tried to talk to me again, but I pushed him away again. He'd been trying to talk to me for a while, but I kept pushing him away. I was angry enough and I didn't need him to add to it. He was probably pissed about Seth. And? Will asked, raising his brows. Maddie would reject him because she loves Dmitri. Dmitri would punish Seth and we would just go back to normal. Was he serious? Besides, the kid will back off as soon as he finds his mate, Will added, sighing and shaking his head. Are you kidding me right now? I asked, narrowing my eyes at him. If he wanted Ali, would you be talking like this? Would you want him to touch her or try something? Anger flashed in Will's eyes. Of course not, he said, grabbing Ali's hand. But I would never do what you did, Dmitri. Didn't you hear Maddie? She thinks that you don't trust her. Just listen to him. Skol screamed and I could hear panic in his voice. Listen to him. I furrowed my brows and focused on Skol. What are you talking about? I asked angrily. Maddie. Skol yelled. She thinks that you don't trust her. She thinks that you are going to leave her. She is having a panic attack and Sky can't calm her down. My heart stopped beating. I could feel the blood leave my face. She pushed Sky away, Skol continued, whining. She was thinking about how everyone left her and she thinks that you will leave her too. She was wondering if you would go back to Savannah. My stomach twisted. Dimitri. Will called me worriedly. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked Skol as I forced my legs to move. You should have told me sooner. I tried to. Skol yelled. You kept ignoring me. I started running out of my office. Dimitri. Will call me again. I mumbled as I almost ripped my office door open. My heart was racing a mile a minute as I ran toward our bedroom. She thought that I would leave her. She thought that I would go back? Like I wouldn't rip my own heart out if I lost her. Like I wouldn't stop breathing the minute she wouldn't be in my life. I couldn't get to our room fast enough. I had to hold her. I had to apologize. I had to tell her how much I loved her. I thought that my heart would jump out of my body when I finally reached our room. Maddie! I exclaimed as I barged inside. My eyes fell on her and I wanted to rip my own heart out. She was sitting on the floor with her head between her knees. She was rocking back and forth slowly and I could hear her sobbing. I slammed the door shut and threw myself next to her. Maddie, princess, no, I cried out as I pulled her onto my lap. I will never leave you. Never, Maddie, never. She didn't let me see her face. She buried it into my neck and continued sobbing. I wrapped my arms around her and placed a hand on her head, holding her close to me. My heart was breaking. I am so sorry, princess, I continued as I started kissing every part of her I could reach. I am so sorry. I will never leave you. I love you with my entire heart. You are my life, Maddie. You are my home. You are mine and I am yours. My voice was trembling and I felt tears fall down my cheeks. I could feel her pain and I wanted to scream. I was so focused on my anger before that and I couldn't feel how hurt she was. Please forgive me, my love, I mumbled, trying to stop my voice from trembling. Please forgive me. I continued kissing her and I tightened my arms around her. She was crying out for her mom, Skol mumbled quietly and I could hear him whine. Oh, my love. My princess. I wished so much that I could take that pain away from her. I wished I could bring her mom back. I love you, Maddie, I said softly. You are my greatest treasure and I will never leave you. I promise, my love. Her sobbing quieted down a little. I placed a finger under her chin and I lifted her head a little. The broken look I saw on her face made me want to tear the room down. I trust you, princess, I told her softly. I am so sorry. I let my anger get the better of me, but I was never angry at you. I love you, my beautiful little mate. She sniffled and buried her head into my neck again. She pressed herself closer to me and I closed my eyes. I love you, Maddie, I repeated quietly. I love you and I am so sorry. Sick. Dimitri's POV. Waves of pain just kept washing over me. Guilt was tearing me from the inside. I didn't know how to make up for it. I didn't know how to assure her that I would never leave her. I love you, princess, I kept repeating it, hoping it would somehow fix what I broke. I am so sorry. Her sobbing eventually quieted down and I could feel her calming down a little. I kept kissing every part of her I could reach. I kept running my fingers through her hair. I kept rubbing her back softly. I kept mumbling how much I loved her and that I would never leave her. I lifted her head a little so I could look at her beautiful face. Her eyes were closed. She was pale and there were red circles around her eyes. Her cheeks were puffy and wet. Maddie. I called her softly as I caressed her cheek, wiping the tears away. She didn't respond. She was asleep. I sighed and pressed a soft kiss on her temple. Sleep, my love, I said quietly. I won't let go. I won't leave. She unconsciously pressed herself even closer to me and I couldn't help but smile a little. My love, I said quietly as I kissed her lips softly. You are mine. You are mine to love and to cherish. I will never leave you. I promise. It would kill me if I left her. It would destroy me. I would be an empty shell of a man if I lost her. A knock on the door made me look up. The door opened and Will peeked inside. His brows furrowed when he saw Maddie. Is she okay? He asked as he walked inside and closed the door. She is sleeping, I said quietly. Will sighed and approached us. Will stood in front of us and took a deep breath. You will apologize and everything will be okay, he said. She loves you, Dmitri. She loves you so much. She will understand. I gulped and buried my nose into her hair. She thought that I would leave her, I muttered. She thought that I would go back to Savannah. Will sighed again and I looked back up at him. He had a worried look on his face. You were really angry, Dmitri, Will said. I never saw you like that. She definitely never saw you like that. What happened? Will furrowed his brows and shook his head. I know Kendrick pissed you off, but the anger was just rolling off you in waves, Will added. It was strange seeing you like that. I took a deep breath and placed a hand on Maddie's head. I pressed her closer, assuring myself that she was safe and in my arms. I don't know, I said, shaking my head. Maybe it was because I hadn't seen Maddie in a few hours. I am really not sure. Will looked at her and gulped. Are you really that dependent on her? He asked. I mean, I get it now. I feel amazing when I am with Ali. I feel my best when I am with her, but I don't think that being without her would cause me to react like that. I would miss her. I would want her back as soon as possible. I would be on edge, sure, but I wouldn't react like that. I tightened my jaw and shook my head. I don't know what to tell you, Will, I said. I can't explain it. I can't. I stopped talking and took another deep breath. It felt like I had that anger stored somewhere and it all just exploded out of me, I mumbled, trying to explain the best I could. I just couldn't stop it. Will looked back up at me and furrowed his brows. That sounds weird, he said. It shouldn't be like that, Dmitri. Maybe you should talk to someone about it. You've been through a lot lately. I placed another kiss on the top of Maddie's head. You can't hurt her like that every time you lose control, Will added. She doesn't deserve it, Dmitri. I tightened my hold on her. She deserved nothing but love and care. She deserved the best. She deserved to be cherished and loved unconditionally. She did everything right, Will continued softly. She handled it like she was supposed to. She wasn't in any danger. Ellie and Mike were there. She told him no. When he asked about dinner, she said that she was going to ask you if you could both go. She did amazing, Dmitri. I knew that. I knew that she did amazing. I knew that she wouldn't do anything to hurt me. I trusted her, of course I did. But I didn't trust him. And I couldn't control my anger. I ran my fingers through her hair and tried to ignore a wave of guilt that washed over me again. She did amazing, I repeated. Will nodded. You have to make sure that you don't do it again, Dmitri. Talk to someone about it. I sighed. Talk to who? I don't know, Will said, shrugging. Oliver or Mike maybe. I sighed again. I didn't trust Oliver yet, and Mike never really had a true mate. He never marked his fated mate and my mother was his chosen mate. Their bond was never really as strong as mine and Maddie's was. Maddie whimpered quietly and I froze. Maddie, princess. I called her quietly. Is she okay? Will asked, his voice laced with worry. I lifted her head gently and saw that she was still asleep. Her brows were furrowed and there were little beads of sweat on her forehead. My heart started racing. Was she having a nightmare? Was she dreaming about me leaving her? Maddie. I called her, my voice trembling. Wake up, princess. I am here. I leaned in to place a kiss on her forehead and my heart stopped beating. She was burning up. I cried out as I placed a hand on her forehead. What's wrong? Will asked as he crouched next to us. She is burning up, I mumbled. Go get the doctor. Will jumped up and ran out of the room. Maddie. I called her a bit louder. Wake up, princess, please. She groaned quietly and opened her beautiful eyes. I cupped her cheeks and kissed the tip of her nose. Hi, my love, I said, trying to stop myself from shaking. What's wrong, princess? What hurts? She looked around and furrowed her brows a little. My head, she mumbled so quietly I barely heard her. Fear washed over me and I could feel every muscle in my body clenching. She was sick? What was wrong? I was going to lose it. It's okay, my love, I said, trying to remain as calm as possible. I am here. I will make it all better. Dmitri, she mumbled my name quietly. Yes, princess, I said as I kissed her cheek. I am here. I love you, she said. I am sorry for what I did. My heart clenched painfully. No, 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 Maddie, I said, shaking my head furiously. You've done nothing wrong. Nothing, do you hear me? I let my anger get the better of me, but I wasn't angry at you. She gulped and closed her eyes again. I love you, my princess, I added, my voice breaking slightly. Rest, okay? The doctor will be here soon. I placed her head back on my chest and took a deep breath. What was wrong with my love? I needed to know and I needed to fix it. I hated that she was in pain. I had to stop it. I had to. What to do? Madeline's POV. Maddie, my love, wake up, I heard Dimitri's voice. He sounded worried and I tensed up immediately. Why was he worried? Maddie, he called me again and I felt his lips on my forehead. Please, princess. I gulped and forced my eyes to open. I saw Dimitri's handsome face and I smiled. I missed him. I felt like I hadn't seen him in a while. Hi, princess, he said softly and caressed my cheek. How are you feeling? I sighed and furrowed my brows a little. Tired, I mumbled. How long was I asleep? Dmitri glanced behind him. I tried to see who it was, but he was practically lying on top of me and I couldn't see anything. A few hours, he said. Does your head hurt? A bit, I sighed. Is everything okay? Dmitri placed a hand on my forehead and frowned. Let me talk to her, my king, I heard Oliver's voice and I tried to look at him over Dmitri's shoulder. Why was he here? Dmitri sighed and moved a little. He sat next to me and pulled me up so my back was pressed against his chest. He kissed my temple and wrapped his arms around me. Hi, Maddie, Oliver said softly. How are you feeling? I furrowed my brows a little. I looked around the room and saw that Will, Ali, and Ellie were also there. What happened? I tried to remember what I was doing before I fell asleep and I froze. Maddie. Dmitri called me worriedly. I looked at him and my eyes widened. I am sorry, I mumbled, shaking my head. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to make you angry. I didn't mean to. Dmitri interrupted me by pressing a soft kiss on my lips. I know, princess, he mumbled. You don't have to apologize, okay? You didn't do anything wrong, I did. Dmitri studied my face for a second. I talked to you about it, he added, his voice laced with worry. It was right before you fell asleep. You don't remember? I bit my lower lip and tried my hardest to remember. You were sitting on the floor when I came into the room, Dmitri said softly. I pulled you onto my lap and I told you how sorry I was. Oh, I remembered that. I fell asleep after that, I added and Dmitri gave me a small nod. Do you remember the pack doctor coming here after that? Oliver asked, making me look back at him. I was confused. Why was the pack doctor here? She was asleep, Dmitri said. I didn't let him wake her up. Why was he here? I asked, looking back at Dmitri. You have a fever, princess, he mumbled softly. You said that your head hurt. My eyes widened and I placed a hand on my forehead. I was really warm. The doctor didn't find anything wrong, Maddie, Oliver said. It is probably caused by your powers. My powers? How? How could her powers cause this? Oliver sighed and looked at Dmitri. She is still learning to use them, he said calmly. Dealing with that kind of power can be overwhelming. Oliver looked back at me. I need you to be honest with me, Maddie, he said with seriousness in his voice. Did you experiment with your powers? Did you use them without telling anyone? I shook my head immediately. No, I said. I don't want to hear what others are thinking. I've been trying to find a way to stop myself from hearing those things. Why would I want to experiment? Your powers go beyond reading minds, Maddie, Oliver said. You can feel other people's emotions. You can manipulate them. I tensed up and gulped. Have you been doing that, Maddie? Oliver asked, narrowing his eyes slightly. I remained silent. I wasn't sure what to say. Madeline. Dmitri called me softly. I gulped but kept my eyes on Oliver. I am not sure, I said quietly. If I did, I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know it was related to my powers. Dmitri tightened his hold on me. What did you do, princess? Dmitri asked softly. I looked at him and took a deep breath. I took your anger away, I said and his eyes widened. I looked back at Oliver and furrowed my brows. But I thought that mates can do that, I said, shaking my head. I didn't use my powers to do it. Oliver sighed and shook his head. Mates make it easier on each other, Maddie, he said. They can't take something away. You used your powers to do it. Dmitri kissed my temple and took a deep breath. You didn't have to do that, princess, he said quietly. I could have handled it. I leaned more into him and kept my eyes on Oliver. So that's why I'm sick? I asked. I just probably need some rest then. Oliver nodded. You do need to rest, Maddie, but I am still a bit worried. Why? Dmitri asked, tightening his hold on me. She will be okay. She has to be okay. Oliver took a deep breath and nodded. She will be just fine. She needs to spend a day in bed and she needs sleep. Why are you worried then? Will asked, making Oliver look at him. Because it is obvious that Maddie is having trouble controlling her powers, he said. She needs practice and we can't do that with everyone. Here. We are risking exposure. No one can know who she is. Dmitri growled quietly and pressed me closer to him. No one can know, Dmitri repeated. No one will know. No one will touch her. I will kill them. He started shaking a little and I instinctively focused on his anger and fear. I was just about to take them away when he stopped me. Maddie, no, he growled. Don't take it. I looked at him and he caressed my cheek. I am sorry, I mumbled. It's instinct. I didn't do it on purpose. Dmitri kissed the tip of my nose and nodded. I know, princess, he said softly. This is what I am talking about, Oliver sighed, drawing our attention back to him. You react on instinct and it can be dangerous. Do you have any suggestions? Ellie asked. What can she do until the Alpha's meeting is over and she can start practicing? Oliver looked at me and I saw worry on his face. I knew that I wasn't going to like what he was going to say next. There is a plant that could block her powers, he said. But there could also be some other side effects if she takes it. What side effects? Dmitri asked angrily. She isn't taking anything dangerous. Oliver looked at him and shook his head. I would never put her in danger, my king, he said. What are the side effects? I asked and Oliver looked back at me. You wouldn't be able to use Mind Link, he said. And you probably wouldn't be able to talk to your wolf. A wave of nervousness washed over me. Sky stirred and whined quietly. No, Dmitri said. What if I am not with her? I want to be able to mind link her. Oliver looked at him and nodded. Understandable, he said. Which is why I will ask you to talk about it. Don't decide right now. Are you sure that she will have those side effects? Will asked. No, Oliver responded, shaking his head. She could have them. It's not certain. Oliver stood up and gave me a small smile. Think about it, Maddie, he said. Let me know what you decide. I will be ready if you choose to take the plant. Oliver bowed to Dmitri and walked out of the room. I took a deep breath and leaned my head on Dmitri's shoulder. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Was it really so dangerous for me to practice and learn more about my powers? Would someone really see me if I stayed in my room? How would anyone know what I was doing here? I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. My head started throbbing again. I couldn't think about it. I couldn't make a decision. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description.